වාණිජ, විද්‍යා, ගණිත, කලා, තාක්ෂණ වේදය, විෂය ධාරාවන් වල සියලුම විෂයන් සඳහා විශ්වවිද්‍යාල කතිකාචාර්යවරුන් සහ රජයේ පාසල්වල ප්‍රවීණ ආචාර්ය මණ්ඩලය විසින් මෙහෙයවනු ලබන දේශන නැනපවුර YouTube channel ඔස්සේ නැරඹිය හැක. ඉදිරි දේශන දැනගැනීම සඳහා නැනපවුර YouTube channel subscribe කරන්න. දැයි දූ දරුවන්ගේ අනාගත ජයග්‍රහණයට.
Hello everyone. Now we are going to start our business studies lecture. Madam Sanjeevani joins with us today. Tell the friends who could not attend today can watch today's lecture on our Nanapuri YouTube channel. So I invite our Madam Sanjeevani who is joining with us today. Hello Madam.
Hello, thank you, Pita. All right, so students will start now. I think that we need to start from the place that we have stopped that day, right? So up to this place, I think that everyone can see the screen. All right, so then that day I stopped here, right? So I told you that I will divide the unit and will teach you into two sectors, so that up to this we discussed last week, and today we are going to start business environment. All right, so this business environment, I think that it is something very, very important for y'all. Like for a businessman, actually to start up a business, he has to know what the environment is, right? So y'all also should know what the environment is, because you never know now in future that if you are going to be an entrepreneur, then if you can start a new business. So business environment is something that is very important for you to analyze and to check, right? So first of all, we'll see what business environment is, right? Environment in which the factors which influence the business, right? It is known as business environment. So basically, business environment we can divide into two, right? That will be internal environment and external environment. Okay, so now we'll see what internal environment is. So these are the influential, these internal environmental factors will influence the business within the organization, right? So that exists within an organization, right? This is internal environment. External environment is that is outside the organization, not within the organization, right? That is outside the organization is known as external environment. So you need to know what internal environmental factors as well as external environmental factors. Then we'll see the factors of business environment, right? So that you can show that through a flow chart, right? So wait, I'll share that and you can check that from here. Here, hope you can see this business environment, right? Now here, now you can see the two parts of business environment, internal and external. Now, internal environmental factors are these things, right? So these internal environmental factors, you can control, children, right? Now here, check the internal environmental factors: owners, managers, employees, organizational structure, organizational culture, and resources, right? These are internal environmental factors. So, and the other way, external environment is also there. This external environment you can divide into two, right? You can divide further, right? That is immediate environment and macro environment. So what is immediate environment? There are other terms also that we can give for this immediate environment. Micro environment, that is also known as immediate environment. Task environment, these are the other terms that you can use instead of immediate environment. Sometimes for the question paper you might get task environment, so you should know that they are talking about this immediate environment, right? So macro environment. So now these are the two parts of external environment, right? Now we'll see what comes under immediate environment. Customers, suppliers, competitors, producers of substitute products, and potential businessmen. So these factors will come under immediate or task or micro environment. Under macro environment, you get, factors that you cannot control, right? So these factors, of course, you cannot control, children. Now check economic environment, political environment, legal, demographic, technological, natural, social and cultural, and global. These factors you cannot control. Now you need to get this clearly. Business environment you can divide into two, internal and external. Internal environmental factors, fully you can control. Completely you can control. But external environmental factors you cannot control, right? So especially macro environmental factors, right? So one by one you need to know about these factors, right? Who the owners are, who the managers, right? Who the employees are, organizational structure, organizational culture, resources, right? You need to know each and everything, right? So now we'll see. 1 minute. Okay, so back to the presentation. So now you saw the flow chart, right? So internal and external environment, how can you divide? And then we'll see what task environment is. So hope you can remember the other terms that I have given under task environment: immediate environment and micro environment, right? So what is this task environment, children? So the specific organization or group that influence and belongs to external environment, that is task environment, right? Then we'll see what macro environment is. Macro environment is the general environment, right? So that is the broad environment of the business, right? So this is macro environment. I told you that you cannot control this macro environmental factors. Then benefits that a business get by studying the business environment. Now I told you when I'm starting the lecture also, I told you that it is better, like, it is benefited and it is, like, very much useful for you to study business environment. Why? Now suppose that you are going to start a business. Why business environment is useful? To identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, right? So because of these reasons only, that business environment, studying of business environment is useful, right? So if you are initially starting a business, you need to know what strengths that you have, right? So as well as what are the weaknesses that you have. Then you need to identify the opportunities, right? And you need to identify threats to avoid those things. Okay, so these are the benefits that a businessman gets by studying the business environment. To identify strengths, to identify weaknesses, to identify business opportunities, and to identify threats, right? So this is SWOT actually, right? SWOT analysis is this: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. All right. So now we'll see the internal environmental factors. I told you, you need to know one by one. So what are these internal environmental factors? Owners, managers, employees, organizational culture, organization structure, and resources. So now you know these things are within the organizations, right? So owners are not outside the organization, they are inside the organization. Managers is also the same, employees also the same. So organizational culture, structure, resources, all these things are internal environmental factors. So now we'll see one by one. Owners, who are the owners? So who contribute resources or invest funds to the business, and in the meanwhile, if he gets profit or there are losses, they are the owners, right? So if you are an owner, you contribute resources to start up the business, right? So you put some initial investment as capital, right? In the meanwhile, you get the profit or loss. So that they are owners. So who are managers? The party who formulates business plans. So owners can prepare the business plan. This is what you should do, right? So that's a business plan. But managers are the people who formulates this and implement this, right? And they take decisions also, right? So with the help of owners, the managers formulates business plans and they make decisions. Then we'll see who the employees are. If you are in an organization, you can be treated as an employee, the party who is engaged on relevant work according to the plan, right? They are employees. Then what is this organizational culture? Culture is the beliefs, values, attitudes, and the behavioral patterns, right? Where those things, if they are now, those things can be differ from one organization to another one. In your organization, you might be having a different culture. You might be having different beliefs, values, attitudes, norms, habits. But my organization, I might be having a different culture. I can have a different belief. I can have different values, attitudes, right? So these things are known as the culture, right? So we are handing over these things to another generation. So that's the culture. So from organization to organization, culture differs, children. Then structure. What is structure? The way in which the functions, resources, and authority of a business are distributed, right? That is structure. Some organizations, they can have, tall structures. Some short structures, right? They can have CEO. Under CEO, they can have some, managers. Under managers, they can have some executives. Under executives also, they can have some, other employees working under them, right? So it's a different structure. Some organizations, now suppose that you are having an organization, you don't have that tall structure. You have CEO, under CEO managers, under managers employees. You have 3 layers. But my organization, I have 4-5 layers, right? That's the structure, children. Okay, how the authority flows from top to bottom. That's the organizational structure, right? We'll be discussing this in detail under business management, right? In grade 13, under business management, we discuss organization structure in detail, okay? Then resources. What are these things? Now, last week also I discussed about resources, right? Everything such as land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, time, information, knowledge. So basically these are inputs. So inputs can be considered as resources. We use resources to provide or to produce goods and services. Okay. Then children, there can be strengths and weaknesses in these external environmental factors. So now you don't get opportunities and threats in the internal environmental factors, right? The strengths and weaknesses that are bound with each environmental factors of internal, right? So internal environment, only you get strengths and weaknesses. Opportunities and threats you get under external environment, right? So that also you need to remember. Strengths and weaknesses you get internally, children. So for an example, if I am the owner, if I have, if I'm financially sound, that is a strength to the organization, right? If I don't have much money to invest, that is a weakness to the organization. Okay, if I have, skillful employees with me, that's a strength to me. But my employees are not that much skillful, and if they are not that much capable to do the work, that's a weakness, right? So no, those are the strengths and weaknesses that you have, right, in the internal environment. Now we'll see, I will just show you and we'll discuss these internal environmental strengths and weaknesses, children. 1 minute. I'll I'll show you that. Okay. Right. So now hope you can see this. Hope this is clear. Right. Now, first, internal environmental factor owners. Right. What are the strengths that we can discuss under this? Having a large number of them. You have a lot of owners in the organization. That means what? A large capital. Okay. So there are increased financial strength. There are increased knowledge and experience. Those are strengths to the organization, children. So opposite of all these things can be treated as weaknesses, right? Having a small number of them, right? Decreased financial strength in them, lack of knowledge and experience in them. Those are weaknesses, right? If you take managers, what are the strengths of managers? They are increased training and experience. If you in your organization, if you have a well-trained manager, that's a strength to you, right? Ability to take correct decisions. If you can take now, if you're a manager, if you can take correct decision at the correct time, that's a strength to the business, right? So weaknesses: decreased training and development, being backward to take decisions, taking wrong decisions, right? So these are the weaknesses of managers. Then if you take employees, having clever and experienced employees, they are strengths to the organization. Having versatile ability in them. Now suppose if you have 10 employees, they have 10 abilities, right? They have 10 skills. So it's a blessing, children, right? Versatile abilities in them is a blessing and it's an advantage, right? And so that you can just consider as a strength to the business. Having a good attitude in them, having a motivated employees. Even though you have 100 of employees, children, if they are not motivated, they will not do anything to the organization, right? So if they are more demotivated, they always think negatively. Ayo, this is worst of doing it. Like it's no point of doing it, right? It's waste of time, right? So these are demotivated ideas. But if they are motivated, they do something extra also, right? So if you have motivated employees working group, that means it's a strength to the organization. Then what are the weaknesses? So opposite of these things: having inexperienced employees, having irresponsible and unaccountable employees. They are not like they don't like they're not responsible to do anything. So it's a weakness to the organization. Having unfavorable working habits, so that is also a weakness. Having negative attitudes, that is also a weakness. Having inefficient employees, that is also a weakness to the organization. So if you take organization culture, I told you what organization culture is, right? So what are the strengths? Having a positive evaluation and value system, right? That is a strength to the organization. In your organization, you have a culture like that. You're evaluating employees, right? So positively, right? You think good side of each and everyone. So it's a positive one. Having an inherent developed ethics and habits, so that is also a strength. So what are weaknesses? Not having an established value system, an ethical system, not having a high supervision. So those are weaknesses, children. Then if you take organizational structure, I explain you what organizational structure, right? It's the hierarchy, right? So what are the strengths of these organizational structure? I told you some have different layers, a lot of layers, some have only few layers. So what are the strengths? Proper division of work. What now? Division of work also we will be discussing in detail under business management, right? So but I will give you what in brief, what division of work. Division of work is the whole work that you divide into small parts and you assign them into different people. So you will be doing the same task again and again, right? All the time, every day. So you do a small part of it, right? So that is division of work. If you get an order, right? So if suppose that it is a garment factory, right? So apparel industry. So what is the division of work? So you get an order, you just hand over cutting section, that cutting part. So that's division of work. You divide the workload into several units and you just assign those, right? So if you have assigned properly the division of work, so that is a strength. So that person who's cutting every day the material, he knows what to do, right? So efficient work can be gained. Then proper building up of the organization. So from that, you can build up the organization in a proper manner, right? That is also a strength. Okay, then what are the weaknesses? Having conflicts among roles, lack of coordination among sections. So those are problems, children. So those are weaknesses that you have. Then if you take resources, there are quantitative and qualitative resources. Quantitative in the sense quantity wise, number wise you can measure. Qualitative, not number wise, as quality, right? So those are strengths. What are weaknesses then? Having outdated resources because you have not updated properly. So having outdated resources, lack of resources, not having enough resources, these are weaknesses to the organization. Now you know the weaknesses and strengths of resources, right? 1 minute. Back to the presentation. Now the strengths and weaknesses that are bound with each environmental factors, now we discussed, right? Now we'll see the next one. Task environmental forces. Now the internal environment that we are done. Okay, so internal environmental factors that we learned and their strengths and their weaknesses separately we learned. Right, now we'll see the task environmental forces of a business. Right, so task environmental forces. Sometimes they ask children, they ask you to name the task environmental forces. So you should know what task environmental forces. Customers, suppliers, competitors, producers of substitute products, potential businessmen. So these are task environmental forces of a business. Now we'll see consumers. Now children, customer and consumers are two different people, right? So that is not the same, right? Customer is a person who buys the product and he can sell that also if he wants. Consumer is the person who buys the product for final consumption, right? That's the difference between these two. So if you take consumer, buyers of the goods and services of a business, they are consumers, right? So this consumer is also a part of task environment. So factors such as awareness of consumers, income of consumers, so that will create opportunities and as well as threats. Right now, from external environment, you can't expect strengths and weaknesses, children. You get opportunities and threats from external environment. So if you take consumers, now if the income level of consumers are high, that will be an opportunity for your business, right? So if the income level goes down, that is a threat to you. Sometimes he might not buy your product, right? So consumers can create opportunities and threats to businesses. So if you take suppliers, suppliers will see individuals. Suppliers can be individual or else an institution, right? What do? They provide resources needed for to produce a product, right? So factors such as providing or not providing quality materials in time, right? That can create opportunities and threats to business, right? Suppose supplier did not send the material in time. So that's now, then what will happen? You can't, produce the product and give the product to the consumer properly, right? Continuously. So that is a threat then. Okay, so then if they give their material or the resources properly in time, that is an opportunity. Okay, so suppliers also will give provide opportunities and threats. Then if you take competitors, so who are competitors? They provide similar goods and services, right? That the businesses are competitors, right? If you have a competitor, they provide the same product as you. Okay, so they are competitors, right? So if there is a competitor newly entering into the market, right? So what will happen? It's a threat to you. Sometimes consumers might go to your competitor rather than staying with you. Okay, so that's a threat. But how can that be an opportunity, children? So competitors can be threat and as well as an opportunity. How can that be an opportunity? By looking at competitors' product, you can just modify your product, right? You can give something better than that by looking at his product. That is an opportunity there. Okay, so get it clearly. Competitors can be threats as well as opportunities, right? So by looking at their product, you can give something better than them, right? You can modify the product, or else that can be an opportunity. But if he's giving a better product than you, so obviously it's a threat to your organization, right? So competitors can create threats as well as opportunities. Then if you take producers of substitute products, who are producers of substitute products? They supply alternative products or services, right? So for an example, tea, coffee, right? They are substitutes. Okay, they are substitute products. So those who supply alternative products or services for the product, so that the business supply, are the producers of substitute products. So while the availability of plentiful substitute products is a threat, right? So now you are producing tea, but there are plenty of coffee that they sell. So it's a threat to your business, right? And that is also creates other business opportunities also, right? So you also can modify your product. You can just give something, similar to that also, right? So those are opportunities. So producers of substitute products give opportunities and threats. Then we'll take potential businessmen. Who are potential businessmen? Those who wish to enter into or invest in future, right? The people or the businessmen who are willing to invest in future. They are potential businessmen or potential investors. Okay, those who expect to enter the market are known as potential businessmen. They also can create opportunities and threats also. How can they create opportunities, children? So when the potential businessman comes, right? So now you know his financial ability and whether he's financially sound or what type of business that he is going to start. So you can just modify your business and you can just have some precautions. Okay, and how can that be a threat? Basically, like a new businessman enters, so you have a threat because he can give better facilities than you, right? So potential businessmen can create opportunities and threats, right? So again, I'll tell you the task environmental forces that we discussed. Customers. So customers are the people, the buyers of the goods and services. They can create opportunities and threats. Then suppliers, they are the people who are providing, or the institutes that they provide resources to you, right? So they can provide, they can provide opportunities and they can be threats to your organization. Then competitors, they provide similar goods and services to the business, right? So the competitors can be threats as well as opportunities to businesses. Then producers of substitute products, so they are the people who provide alternative products or services. They also can create you opportunities, and they also can give you threats. Then potential businessmen, they are the people who are willing to invest in future, and they create opportunities as well as threats. So we discussed all the task environmental forces. All right. Then we'll go to macro environmental forces, children. Right now, before that, I will just recall internal environment and external environment are the two environmental parts of business environment. So external environment, you can further divide into two: micro, macro, or task and macro. Task environmental forces that we discussed now. Now the macro environmental forces, right? So these are the macro environmental forces. Now you can see economic environment, political environment, legal environment, technological environment, demographic environment, natural environment, social and cultural environment, global environment. Right, so these are the macro environmental forces. Okay, so now for this also you need to know one by one. Here also macro environmental forces give strengths as, opportunities and threats. Okay, strengths and weaknesses can be seen in internal environmental only. Right, under internal environmental forces only that you can see strengths and weaknesses. Opportunities and threats you can see under macro environmental forces. Right, now we'll see the first one, political environment. Right, now I told you these external environmental factors you cannot control. So if you take political environment, children, can we control the political environment? No, not at all. So what comes under political environment? You need to know what comes under political environment. Government agencies, political policies of existing government, right? These things come under political environment. So that will affect the business to children. So now if they take a favorable policy, right, that will affect your business, right? So if they take an unfavorable decision to your business, something favorable to the government or the country, but that is not suitable to your business, right? So that will directly affect you, right? So don't mix up, children. Political and legal don't mix. Political environment are the government agencies, political policies of the existing government. Right now, for example, I have given here two examples: government's political vision and policies, following open economic policies. These are examples. Right now, here the present government, they don't import vehicles, right? So now if you if you are a businessman, if you have a business, right, related to that, the vehicle, so what will happen to your business? It's actually a threat, right? So if the government has reduced that, or the government has allowed, right, to import vehicles, so if you are dealing with those things, so that is an opportunity to you, right? So those are government and government's political vision and policies, right? So business should try to get use of the opportunities and to face threats, right, implied from this external environment, children. Okay, so basically what political environment is: government agencies, political policies of existing government, right, and their vision, okay, open economic policies. These things will affect the business, right? Sometimes that can create opportunities, sometimes that can create threats. Then legal environment. What do you mean by legal environment? Government acts, not the policies, children. Now that's what I told you, right? Children do this, right? Normally children do that. Don't mix legal environment with political environment. Government acts, government rules and regulations, those things come under legal environment, right? Consumer Affairs Authority Act, labor rules and regulations, Sri Lankan Standard Act. So these things come under legal environment. Okay, so business should try to conduct business activities according to the rules and regulations and face the opportunities and threats implied for this environment. Now, suppose now Consumer Affairs Authority, under Consumer Affairs Authority, if you are doing a business, right? If you have a shop and if you are a retailer, right? So if they have strict rules and regulations, right? So you have to adhere to those rules and regulations, right? You need to get the opportunities from that. Okay, right. So then this is legal environment. Then the next one is economic environment. So what is economic environment? While the purchasing power of people influence the existence of business, cost that they have to be incurred for business activities. So these things depend on economic factors, right? So basically, if they ask what the factors of economic environment, what you can say? Inflation, interest rates, gross national product, right? Full employment, cost of living, inequality in income distribution, savings, investments. These are the examples that you can give on the economic environment, children. All right. So inflation, we are experiencing this inflation, right? Continuous increment of prices of the goods and services, right? So that's inflation, right? So that will affect the business, right? Now what will happen now? Inflation affects the business, right? Because of that only, we always tell and we always prefer the stabilized economy without inflation and without deflation. Then interest rate, right? Now for an example, if I take like this, now suppose that you have a business you're producing mats, right? Mats. With local resources, you produce mats. Now, if they can produce mats, now instead of producing mats, if they can import mats from another country, right? So what will happen? Right? You are not protected, right? So it's a threat to you, right? So basically that comes under political environment. Okay, this is an example for political environment. Right now they have a policy, right, and they have impose a rule saying that they will import mats rather than manufacturing here. So what will happen then? So it's a threat to you because they can import the mat and they can just give for a cheaper price than you. So that's a threat to you, right? So now here from examples you can just get these, children. Okay, so then it is an example under political environment. So now we are discussing on economic environment. No, so if you take interest rate, children, if the interest rate increases, what will happen? The businessmen, they will not obtain loans, right? So then what will happen? Investment will decrease. Okay, so that will affect the businesses. There are no investors to invest, right? So interest rate, inflation, gross national product, employment, cost of living. So all these things will affect the business. Okay, so while these factors influence businesses should try to take advantages of the opportunities and face threats, right? So if they feel that it is a threat, they need to overcome this and they have to convert that to an opportunity. Right? So if you have a business, if you feel, oh my God, this is a threat to you, right? Threat to me. So then what you should do? You have to overcome that. You have to convert that into an opportunity, right? This is economic environment, children, right? So inflation, interest rate, gross national product, right? Employment, cost of living. So now the cost of living is very high, right? That has affected the businesses. Now, in your family, if there are 5, so the consumption that you must have reduced now. Okay, not like earlier that you might not consuming not the way that you have consumed earlier, right? So because of cost of living, okay, because it's very high, so you cannot afford. So what will happen then? Then the businesses will affected. It's a threat to the business, right? If the cost of living increases, so then that's a threat to the business. They need to convert that into an opportunity by giving some discounts or just to forget about their discounts and giving some opportunities for the consumers to consume and to catch hold of some consumers. Right? You have to have some, tactics, and you have to have some, methods of promoting your product. Okay, so these things come under economic environment. So now if you take social and cultural environment. So what is this social and cultural environment? Beliefs, social ethics that individuals possess are included in social and cultural environment. So you might be having a different belief, right? So I might be having a different belief, right? So values of individuals, customs, wishes, religious beliefs, these things include in social and cultural environment. Okay, so now if you take social and cultural environment, if you take this religious beliefs, right? So then now for Christmas time, there are so many, Christmas trees and decorations, and because now if you are involved in a business, if you are involved in a business there that you sell all these, fancy items like those, then it's an opportunity for you, right? Because seasonal businesses, right? So according to your religion, right, religious beliefs that you can, take opportunities, right? For Vesak, you can take that opportunity. For New Year season, you can take that opportunity, right? So other off seasons, that's a threat actually, right? According to the customs also, you can adapt your businesses. There are opportunities and threats. Some people, they don't consume certain products because that is their custom, right? So if you're producing certain, that people that who avoid consuming the product, so that if you're producing that particular product, it's a threat to your business, right? But you need to convert that to an opportunity, right, by using some other product instead of that, along with that, or instead of that, right? Those are social and cultural environment, right? No, don't by heart everything. Business studies, you get 18 units, children, right? So it's difficult to by heart everything just because it's business. It's something practical. That's what in my first lecture also I told you. If you are studying business studies, you need to think that you have your own business, then it's easy to answer. Okay, so now even like when you're writing answers for advanced level examination, so just think that you have your own business, then it's easy, children. Otherwise it's very difficult to study. There are certain concepts that you need to memorize, but I don't say no, but all these things you cannot memorize. So you have to think, you have to have your own style, right? So you need to, now as I told you, take some examples and then memorize, so then it's easy. Okay, so that if you can take some seasonal businesses for the social and cultural environment, so now that will get right, while I'm doing this, you can just do this, and you can just have your own method, right? So after that also you can watch the video, and if there are any doubts that you can clear, and you can send me, right? So if you can't remember, so you can just watch again and then clear your doubts, and if you still have doubts, you can just send me. Okay, so get the benefit, children, because I know that there are only very few in English medium sector in Sri Lanka, right? So the instructors, so then you have to get the benefit, because since that we do free of charge, so it's actually a benefit to you all, right? Get the benefit, right? Because of the crisis, so I know that everybody cannot afford for tuition, so the same thing that we do here, so just get the benefit, right? So I thought of doing all 18 units, right? So you can just watch all 18 videos, and sometimes more than that, because I divide the units and just do it. So just watch that, and then after that I'll be doing papers also, past paper questions also, right? So then you will learn how to write answers, since that we go marking, so we know that there are students, even though that they know that we feel that they don't know how to construct their answers. You should construct, and you should organize your answers, children, properly, right? Sometimes you might be knowing the theory part, but when you're writing answers, you need to check how many, marks allocated for that, right? Normally 4 marks allocated. So then you need to know how many points that you need to write. So specifically, if they have not mentioned the points, so you need to, at least 4 points that you need to write. Okay, so we'll discuss all these things when we are discussing papers, right? So definitely I'll be discussing past papers. Now, after completing this, now I don't think today, but next week. So before starting the second unit, I will be discussing papers, some of the questions from the first foundation of business, then I will start the second unit, right? Or else then if you wish that we'll have another one session and we'll discuss papers and we'll start the second unit next week. Okay, either. All right. So then social and cultural environment consist these things: beliefs, social ethics, so that individuals possess. So these things included in social and cultural environment: beliefs of individuals, values of individuals, customs, visuals, religious beliefs. Okay, so they give threats as well as opportunities. Then if you take technological environment, so what is technological environment? Trends in communication technology. And the technology changes, right, rapidly. Okay, so even in agriculture, industrial, medical sector, right? So technological and technology is needed. So this is known as technological environment. So now for examples, I have given you technical inventions, rapid changes in technology, changes in communication technology, expiry products. So these things are examples for technological environment. So these things included in technological environment. So if there are new technology, you can just take that to your organization, right? So you can take the modern technology. Okay, you can just set aside your old, methods, and you can, take new technology, right? So that can be a threat, or else that can be an opportunity as well. How can that be an opportunity? You can produce more than the way that you have produced earlier, right, from the machines or from the whatever the technology that you have used. But see, you need trained people for that, to operate that, so you need to incur a cost, right? So that is also a threat, right? Sometimes for the maintenance you have to incur, right? So there are threats as well. Okay, when the technology is rapidly changing also, children, you need to update yourself, right? So if you don't update, that is a threat then, right? If you update, that is an opportunity. Okay, so these examples that will give you a proper idea about technological environment. So business should try to get the use of opportunities and face threats which implies from the changes in technological environment, right? So this is about technological environment. Then we'll see what demographic environment. What is demographic environment? So demographic, if the term comes, that is about people, children, population, right? So the main factor that connects with the business is population, right? So market is made up of people, right? Size of the population, growth rate of population, gender, age structure, composition of ethnicity, level of education, composition of family, household pattern. These examples are demographic environmental examples. These factors come under demographic environment, right? So size of the population, right? If the population is increasing, so that might give an opportunity to the organization, right? So if the population decreases, that kind of a threat. Okay, then gender, age structure, right? And if you take composition of family, right? If the composition of family is 4, right? 4 members in that family. So they will buy according to that, the composition, right? If the composition of family is decreasing, that means it's a threat to the organization, threat to the business. If the composition of family increasing, that means they buy more, right? That's an opportunity. Okay, so basically demographic environment talks about population, children, right? So again, I'll tell you these examples: size of the population, growth rate of population, gender, age structure, composition of ethnicity, level of education, composition of family. If you take level of education, more people refer books, encyclopedias, right? So if the level of education is not that much good, okay, what will happen? Sorry, what will happen? Then that's a threat to, now if you are producing books, or if you are publishing books, or if you are involved in selling books, what will happen if the level of education decreases? It's a threat to your business, right? That's the best example for this level of education, right? If you're involved in such a business, and if the level of education is high, it is an opportunity. All right, then natural environment. What is natural environment? Now, there is a global awareness on the damages caused to natural resources, right? If you do businesses, if you need to think about the environment as well, children, natural environment, without polluting the air, without polluting the water, land, right? You need to protect the environment. Okay. Now, if you're producing something, you need to think about there without releasing the chemicals, right? Poisonous gases, right? So without releasing all this garbage to water, you need to have some, proper way of disposing the garbage, right? Waste, actually, right? So that's about natural environment. Finding new natural resources, changes in weather and climate, location of the land, natural disasters, these things come under natural environment. So businessmen should try to make use of opportunities and face threats that imply in natural environment. So for that, you need to know what natural environment is, right? Before protecting the environment, you need to know what type of a natural environment that you have. Understood? So you need to know what natural environment is, right? Then you need to protect it. If you are producing something, you need to think about the natural environment also and to produce that. Okay, so that will give some, opportunities as well as threats. That's about natural environment. Then if you take global environment, so what is global environment, children? There are great opportunities to exchange goods and services from the time of globalization. Now, nowadays you can sell anything to any country, anything you can buy from another country by sitting near a laptop. You can do that, right? That's global environment. Okay, but when you do that, you need to think about their culture. Now, suppose that you are going to export something to USA, but you need to think about their culture. It's not the culture that we have as Sri Lankans, right? So then as a result, different kinds of goods and services have entered the world market because of globalization, right? Then tough competition can also be seen. Now, if you take my previous example, mats, right? If you are producing mats in local industry, so what will happen now if if the government is importing mats from another country for a cheaper price? So it's a threat to your business. So now that comes under global environment as well. That example you can write under global environment as well as political environment, right? So trade agreements are signed. So if there are trade agreements, so that can create threats, that can create opportunities. Trade blocks also being created. There are certain blocks. So certain countries, they have got together and they have formed those trade blocks, right? There are certain world organizations. Okay, they have created some international rules and regulations. All these things create threats and opportunities, right? So that is global environment, children. So global environment is what? Buying goods and services, or importing, exporting goods and services free from another country's globalization, right? So the culture, you need to think about their culture. So, and then you have to produce according to their culture, right? That's global environment. Okay. Then we'll see the impact of macro environmental forces on the business. Now, what will happen? Now, if you are studying the business environment, and after that, if you are doing your business properly, after analyzing, if you have analyzed SWOT, and then if you are producing something, so what's the impact of macro environmental forces on the business? Now that you can, in a point form that you can study. And we'll take first demographic environment. Why do you think that you need to study demographic environment, children? So why? Without studying the demographic environment, you can just sell anything or produce anything. Why is it? Now we'll see how can that will affect. Now the demand for goods and services is increased because the increase of population. Now under demographic environment, I explained that, no, right? When the population is increasing, what will happen? The demand for goods and services are also increasing. So then what will happen to your business? That is an opportunity, right? You can produce more, you can sell more. In the same way, if the population decreases, then what will happen? Demand is also will decrease. Then that will create threat to the business. Okay, that is under demographic environment. Then if you take economic environment, decrease in interest rate, that this part also I explained under that. When the interest rate decreases, investors will, reduce borrowing loans, right? So decrease in interest rate results in decrease in interest rate will result in increase in the borrowing loans, right? So that will an opportunity. Okay, don't mix up. Sorry, I made a mistake earlier. Decrease in interest rate. When the increase in interest rate decreases, more investors will obtain loans, children, because the interest rate they have decreased, right? So then that is an opportunity to the business. If they increase the interest rate, what will happen? They will reduce obtaining loans. That is a threat. Okay, again I'll explain that part. If the interest rate increases, investors obtain more loans. That is an opportunity for the business. If the interest rate decreases, then what will happen? I mean, investors will not obtain loans. Then that is a threat to the business, right? So that we discuss under the demographic environment, now under the economic environment. Now, if you take under the political and legal environment, what is the effect? So if the political or the legal imposing favorable rules and regulations for businessmen, right? So if the rules that they have imposed, if it's favorable, then what will happen? That will create business opportunities, right? If the rules are unfavorable, so the unfavorable rules and regulations have been imposed, what will happen? It's a threat to the business, children, right? That comes under political and legal environment. All right, so these factors, what? The impact of macro environmental forces on the business, right? The impact of macro environmental forces on the business, you can discuss under the demographic environment, you can discuss under economic environment, you can discuss under political and legal environment. Then if you take this macro environmental forces that create opportunities and threats to business through influence in task environmental forces. Now, children, even though we are learning this environment as internal, external, macro, micro, but all these, forces are interconnected. You can't just left alone any, a single factor. Everything is interconnected. So now macro environmental forces that can create opportunities and threats by using task environmental forces. How can that be? Now we'll discuss that. Now increase in price level of goods and services. Now see, prices of goods and services will increase. That what will happen then? That will cause the increase of price of goods and services supplied by suppliers also, right? Then the suppliers also will increase their prices. Then similarly, increase in salary level will increase the income of customers, right? Then It is a task environment. The consumers are task environmental forces, no? Right? So now see macro environment and task environment interconnected. Okay, so price level, when the price levels of goods and services increase, right? So the price of goods and services supplied by suppliers also will increase, right? Then same way, increase in salary level will increase the income of customers, right? So that customer comes under task environment. Okay, then examples for the interconnection among macro environmental forces. What are the examples for interconnection? As I told you everything is interconnected. Now we'll see gem mines. Now if you take gem mines, that belongs to the natural environment, right? But to make it business activity, now gem mines, it comes under natural environment. But if you are going to take as a business, if you are going to use it as a business, then you have to take the legal approval. Then what? That is legal environment, right? Natural environment and legal environment. That is how they have interconnected. Natural environment and legal environment. So if you take the other one, when commercial banks install ATM machines for the convenience of customers, they should get the approval from the central bank, right? So what is it? Economic environment and political environment, right? Then these are the interconnection among macro environmental forces. So you also can create, children, not only these only two I have given here, but you also can create, right? You can create political environment, legal environment, you can create political environment and natural environment, you can create demographic and social, right? So you can have your own answer, right? So there's no hard and fast rule for that. All right. So now, then this is the interconnection. This is normally they ask about these interconnections, children. Interconnections among macro environmental forces. Now, before I stop the session, I will just recall what I have done today again. Right. I discussed about business environment, children, right? So this is what I have start discussing. Business environment is two parts: internal, external environment. Then we discussed, I showed you the flow chart, right? Internal environmental factors and external environmental factors. External environment, I told you, I can divide, you can divide into two, like task and macro. The task environmental forces separately. I showed you macro environmental forces separately, I showed you. So then internal environmental factors are owners, managers, employees, organizational culture, organizational structure, and resources. Then I explained each and every one. Then task environmental forces are customers or the suppliers, customers or consumers, suppliers, competitors, producers of substitute products, and potential businessmen. Then I explained all these things. Then macro environmental forces after that: economic, political, legal, technological, demographic, natural, social and cultural, and global environment. So these are the macro environmental forces. Then what is political environment? I told you that's about political policies, right? Then legal, all government rules and regulations, acts. Okay, then economic environment like inflation, interest rate. So those are the examples that I gave you on the economic environment, right? Then social and cultural environment, beliefs, social ethics, right, that individuals possess. Those are social and cultural environment, right? Then technological environment, under that I told you trends in communication technology, right, and the changes that have happened in agriculture, industrial and medical sector, that belongs to technological environment. So I gave some examples as well. Then demographic environment. Demographic environment, I told you, basically population they are talking about under this, right, as size of the population, growth rate, gender, age, structure, composition of ethnicity, level of education, composition of family, household patterns. So these things come under demographic environment. Then I explained you about natural environment, right? So about natural environment, and we need to protect that before producing something. You need to, when you're producing also, you need to have a proper system of wastage, right? Then so that's about natural environment. Then global environment is like exchanging goods and services from the time of globalization, right? From another country or to another country. That's global environment or globalization. Okay, then so basically all these macro environmental forces can create opportunities or it can give threats, right? So if you are a good businessman, right? So you can't say, oh, your threats are there, I don't know what to do. No, you have to, convert that to an opportunity. If you have a threat, you should try to convert that to an opportunity. And you have to be successful, then you can be successful in the business world, right? Otherwise, if you feel like, oh, there are so many threats, I don't know how to overcome. No, right? So if you are a good businessman, you should take risks, right? Not risk averse, right? You need to take risk, and you have to take the opportunities as well, right? And you need to convert those threats, overcome threats, and convert that into opportunities, right? These are macro environmental forces. Then after that, I explain you the impact of macro environmental forces on the business. Okay, so under demographic environment, I explained that. Under economic environment, under political and legal environment. Then I gave you macro environmental forces that can create opportunities and threats by the help of task environment, right? How can that macro environmental forces provide opportunities and threats? Using task environmental forces. That also I explained you. Then I gave some examples for interconnection among macro environmental forces, right? 2 examples I gave you, right? So that's the first lesson, children, right? So we are done with that. Okay, so this is foundation of business. That includes 2 parts, like foundation of business and business environment. So today we completed the first lesson, right? First unit, right? So when you're just following this, if you have some doubts, you can ask me. I mean, you can send through the textbook box, and then if you have any doubts, again, you can watch this later, right? So still, if you have any doubts, so next week you can just forward that through the chat box. Okay, so most probably next week I will be starting the second unit, right? Social responsibilities and business ethics. I'll be starting that. And so if now you can just send me through the comments, like if you wish to start, if you want me to start the papers before starting the second unit, or you want me to do it separately, you can just, you're free to send the comments. Then I can just read all these things. So otherwise, I have no way of getting these things, no, right? So that I will just, do what the way that you want. Okay, so you also must be having a way of, I mean, your way, to get that. So that just send me through the comments so that I can read that and I can get an idea, right, children? All right, children. So I think that's the time just to wind up, and hope you have learned the first unit. And as I told you, so next week I will be starting the second unit. Okay, children, thank you.
Thank you so much, madam. Also, I must say that you can watch the earlier lectures from our Nanapower YouTube channel. Also, we are sending links and tunes to our Telegram group as well as our WhatsApp groups. Those who are not yet joined to Telegram group can click the link on our YouTube channel and join our Telegram group. And don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Once again, we thank our madam Sanjeevani for joining with us today. And also, children have asked, I think Madam want, Madam will join with us on next Monday, 4 to 6. We invite our lovely children to continue to be together with Nana Power. Then we will meet again with another lecture. Thank you.
Okay.
වාණිජ විද්‍යා ගණිත කලා තාක්ෂණ වේදය විෂය ධාරාවන් වල සියලුම විෂයන් සඳහා විශ්වවිද්‍යාල කතිකාචාර්යවරුන් සහ රජයේ පාසල්වල ප්‍රවීණ ආචාර්ය මණ්ඩලය විසින් මෙහෙයවනු ලබන දේශන නැනපවුර YouTube channel ඔස්සේ නැරඹිය හැක. ඉදිරි දේශන දැනගැනීම සඳහා නැනපවුර YouTube channel subscribe කරන්න. දැයි දූ දරුවන්ගේ අනාගත ජයග්‍රහණයට